Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We really appreciate you taking time out of your evening to join us for this awesome panel discussion. We're so excited for you to have the opportunity to hear from these amazing panelists that we've put together tonight. So before we get started, I wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items. Just for the best experience for the panelists, we want to have everybody who's not on the panel, please mute and turn off their video. And if you have questions, please go ahead and submit those through the chat, and we will be getting to those at the end of the event. And without further ado, I will pass it over to our moderator, Marcus Jennings.
Hello, everyone. Here we go. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. We truly appreciate your time, and thank you to the SAC Council for putting this together, along with our lead here is Julie Shuttler and Bethany Crouch, so thank you. And we're very excited about the panel tonight. Obviously, with the state of our country and things happening around this nation, getting a perspective of some different generational Black student athletes and coaches is very good. So again, I just want to say thank you. So as you all have probably seen the flyer, we have with us tonight, I'll start with Jasmine Kennedy. Jasmine is the Associate Athletics Director over at St. Joseph. She's over there freezing right now, so we're gonna keep warm thoughts for her. We also have Judge England here, Morrison England. Judge England is a former coach for us here at Sacramento State, but and it's great to have his perspective as well. We have Chadwick Johnson. Chad is a former football player with us and also an attorney here in Sacramento. And then we have our young pup here, Justice Dawson. We love Justice. Justice, former women's basketball player, graduated here at Sacramento State and just finished her graduate degree. So great to get her perspective on what she's doing right now and everything else. So we'll move right into the questions. So I want to first start out, and this question to be for everyone. So would each of you take a few minutes to tell our audience how you got to where you are today and what made you decide to take the career path that you currently are doing right now? So I'm gonna start this one with Chad.
Okay, cool. I am currently an attorney. I practice here in Sacramento. Why did I take the career path that I took? How did I get here? Well, I took kind of an unconventional route. When I finished Sac State, I played football from 93 to 97. And when I finished Sac State, I wasn't really focused academically. Let's just say it like that. So I left college and got a job as a self-taught computer programmer at Hewlett Packard. After working as a computer programmer for about 5 years, I realized that there was a ceiling that I was not gonna go any higher for two reasons. First of all, I didn't have a degree. And then secondly, I was just not interested in computer programming. But at the time, I was reading a lot of John Grisham legal fiction books and watching a lot of Boston Legal and these TV shows about lawyers going to trial. And I just had this, I was like, if there's anything I could do in this world and there was no limitations, what would it be? And I decided that it would be to be an attorney. So I went back to Sac State, finished my degree at night, and then I got accepted into McGeorge School of Law in Sacramento, and went there for 4 years. And then I took a little break after law school to get my sanity. I got into mindfulness and meditation, and I dove deep into meditation like a monk. And I was just at the river every day and just meditating. And then when I anchored myself in inner peace, and I knew that it was, I was not going to have any more panic attacks, everything was good, I decided to go and take the bar. And that's what I did. I took the bar. I started teaching mindfulness, and one of the lawyers in one of my mindfulness class offered me a job. He just happened to be an injury lawyer. So I accepted that job and worked for him for 18 months and then started my own firm. And here we are 3 years later.
Good. That's a great story, Chad. Thank you. Jasmine, we'll go with you.
So I was a basketball student athlete. I graduated, when did I graduate? 2011. And I interned in the marketing office, worked in the ticketing office all while I was a student athlete. And I also had an internship with the NBC affiliate out there, KCRA. And I thought that I wanted to get into TV and behind the scenes. And I went and worked in television or news production for 2 years. Didn't like that. So I got into sales, news sales, really didn't like that. And while I had that opportunity, I stayed in contact with everyone with the Sac State Athletics Department. I couldn't tell you why. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the games. I enjoyed being around the atmosphere, and I wanted to go back. So I had put myself in a position where when I was ready to leave the news station that I was working at, something had come open at Sac State, and I left my full-time job for a marketing assistant job that was, you don't make a whole lot of money, but you're there for the experience. And this was before Marcus got there. I worked my butt off in every department that I could possibly work in. And when a full-time position came open in the business department, I ended up working there for a little bit and decided to go back and get my master's at the same time. And then it was at that point, while I was getting my master's, that there was a position that had opened up at the University of Notre Dame that I was not going to apply for. But as a women's basketball player, I'm like, how is that even? I've got to shoot my shot, if you will. So I did, and I literally, by the grace of God, I got a call back. And didn't get that position, but they ended up calling me 4 months later for a marketing director job. And I took it, and it's been a roller coaster ever since. So went to Notre Dame. At Notre Dame, it's one of those places that you either use as a stepping stone or you stay for life. And I have no interest in living in South Bend for the rest of my life. So I decided I'm already halfway across the country, might as well go all the way. So I took a position at Fordham in New York. Lived in the Bronx for about a year. Really didn't like that, but it was a great experience. Glad I have that under my belt. And the woman that I worked for at Notre Dame ended up getting the athletic director job at St. Joseph's. And she called, and while I was in New York, and she said, "Hey, I have a marketing position open for you here to kind of lead our department. What do I have to do to get you here?" And 4, maybe 5 months later, here I am at St. Joe's. That's my story.
Good. Great, Jasmine. Justice, we'll go with you. How's it going? How did you get to where you are today?
Okay.
Tell me about it.
Okay, so how I got to where I am today. When I was at Sac State, I interned in marketing and ticketing, and my major was already kinesiology, and it was specifically in PAC. So I knew that I wanted to stay in a sports-based environment. So that kind of led me to where I am. After I graduated in May of 2018, I decided to go into personal training because I really enjoy working out. So I did that, and I also worked part-time in city recreation. So I did that for about a year. I knew I wanted to continue my education, so I started looking into master's programs, and I eventually ended up choosing the University of Illinois and received my master's in recreation, sport, and tourism management, and I just got my degree in December. While I was at the university, I worked as graduate manager for the women's basketball team, and I also worked in sports IT as a help desk manager for sports IT. Pretty much for the time being, I'm not really in my career path. I'm currently job searching and working as administrative assistant for my family's tax business. But I aspire to work in collegiate athletics in the future.
Thank you, Justice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Judge England.
Here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm very impressed with everything that I've heard from all of you up to this point. This is amazing. I didn't go to Sac State. I went to the University of Pacific when we had a football team, and I was a full scholarship athlete there. And my goal in life was to be in the NFL. And I ended up signing with the New York Jets. And I got back there and went with the program and decided that this was the worst decision I ever made in my life. And the one thing that happened was I got to go back to Cal State Fullerton and be a graduate assistant coach. And I knew a man who became the head coach of Sac State, Bob Mattos, football, in 1978. And he asked me to become the offensive line coach there. And that's where it started for me. It brought me back to Sacramento, and it also allowed me to get back into McGeorge, and which is what I'd always wanted to do. And from there on, it just took off, and things happened. And one of the things that, I won't go into all the details right now, but one of the things that I learned is that when it comes to, for me being a judge, a federal judge, I was a state judge initially, but it took time to get there, and it wasn't something that just happened automatically. You have to work through it, and you can't just say, I'm going to be a judge in your legal career and decide it. Things have to happen. And one of the things that happened was that knowing people and having, and getting a reputation that you're okay is a big deal. And one of the things that I always tell the students of McGeorge when I swear them in the beginning of the year is that you have a reputation, and that can never be taken away from you. You have to give it away. And that's huge when it comes to practicing as an attorney. And if you have any intention of being judge, that is huge. And I think that that's something that people need to understand and deal with that. And that's something that I've always thought about, and I think about it all the time, and I talk about it all the time for young lawyers, is that if you're looking to do this in the future, you have to understand that doing what's right is what's right, period, end of discussion. And everyone knows that, because when people talk about, should this person go forward, the question always becomes, should we have them in here because they're good? Or are they not good? Or, can you trust them? And that's it. And my main theme is, if I were an attorney, would I want to appear in front of me? Would I want to have me be the judge? And I think that's something that's important. And I think it's important, and it's something that they came out of athletics. Wherever you went to school and played, I was at UOP when we had scholarship football, and I coached at Sac State, and it's important. It's very, very important. Is how does it fit in? And so I think that's something that people need to think about, and it's not thought about as much as I think it should be. That's my beginning.
Thank you, Judge England. I'm going right into the next question, and I'm gonna start with you on this one here, Jasmine. What was your experience like at Sacramento State as a Black student athlete?
You want my honest opinion?
Yes, because you got your fellow student athletes here.
So I chose Sac State because I was afraid to leave home. That's the truth. I wasn't ready. I was not mature enough. I was not mentally ready to leave the city of Sacramento, which is where I'm from, where my family is. And I say that because it was not my first choice. It was was comfortable, and I was familiar with it. It was really white. That's really the only way to put it. There was, I believe at the time when I went there was only one other Black person that worked in the athletic department, but everyone else was white, everyone. And I don't think I knew at the time how to articulate kind of what that felt like, but I played on high school teams that had a really good mix. I played on high school teams that were also all Black. So for me, the culture shock of coming into a program where all the coaches are white, for the most part, it was me and maybe 2 other teammates, maybe 3 other teammates out of a roster of 15 that we were the only minorities. And it was really white. There were a lot of microaggressions that at the time I did not know how to handle, that were said to me by not just players, but by coaches, by administrators who were working in the athletic department, which now me working in an athletic department, I'm like, oh man, that wasn't a good thing that was said. And there was really no one, at least that I felt, again, looking back, there was no one that was really there to advocate for anyone that was of the minority. There was no one there. And I believe that there were maybe 1 or 2 times that, you know, I did speak up and say something, and it was that, you know, the response was, well, maybe you misconstrued that. Maybe you misunderstood that. Maybe you didn't and it felt very like, you know, I felt you just got to get through it. You've got 4 years. You've got 4 years. Get through it. And so it wasn't a horrible experience. I don't regret it at all, but it was definitely something that was different. And it was definitely something that, looking back on, as an athletics administrator, I can point out the areas where I can definitely see, like, wow, that needs to be improved. I think, you know, now I can look at the athletic department. I mean, when I worked in there, Marcus, they brought you in, and I was like, oh, thank God. Like, we need someone that looks like us, because it's really important. And so that was my experience being a minority at Sac State.
How about you, Chad, in the football program?
Yeah, so the football program, I had a little bit of different experience just because, yeah, all my coaches were white, but a lot of the players were Black. You know, we had a lot of Black players on the team from 93 to 97. And, you know, there were a lot, it was still predominantly white, but we did have a lot of Black players. And I grew up in an environment where I had to be, where I was the only, part of my life, a segment of my life, I was the only Black kid in the white school. So I got very comfortable with white people, you know. So I think that helped me out once I got to Sac State, and it was all white, mostly white people. But also, I joined a historically Black fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, which allowed me to get my, to experience more of my culture. But as far as athletics, I had an overall good experience. I walked on at Sac State, and I earned a scholarship after my redshirt freshman year. And I ended up having a pretty good career here at Sac State. And I don't really have any negative experience as far as race is concerned at Sac State when I was here from 93 to 97.
Good. And our most recent student athlete, Justice, how about, so the question, Justice, I don't know if you heard it, but what was your experience like at Sacramento State as a Black student athlete?
I would say my experience as a Black student athlete was positive for the most part. I gained a lot of lifelong friends, and I'm grateful for it. Sacramento in general is pretty diverse, and I think that's also reflected throughout athletics. Well, at least it was when I was there. The staff for the women's basketball team was diverse, and so was the team. So I didn't have any negative experiences that I can recall, at least.
Yes, thank you. And so, Judge England, with you as a coach, right, and obviously coaching the football program, what was that experience like as being, you're probably one of the few Black coaches on that staff as well? You're on mute right now, Judge England.
My apologies. I'm trying to think back to the coaching staff, and I think you're correct. And with Bob Mattos and the rest of the staff, there were no issues. We had none. I mean, this was in the late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And so things may have been different then. You know, I feel like I'm just such an old guy listening to all the stories from the 1990s and all that. But we didn't have any issues like that I can recall whatsoever. And I went to UOP, and that's a private school. I mean, that's in predominantly white, and we had players of all different colors and everywhere, and we didn't have to deal with that. And maybe because no one talked about it, maybe that was it, but it wasn't something that was an issue. We're all still best friends today. In fact, I'm actually in Modesto right now with one of my former teammates because they're doing work in our house, and that's where I am because we are that close, and the coaches were that close, and I just didn't experience anything like that. I'm sorry to say it, but I just didn't experience it. You know, it was something that didn't happen to me. My parents raised me to do things a certain way, and they were both educators. My dad was a high school principal. My mother was a counselor at Sacramento City College, and I was taught to do things in a certain way, and I just never ran across it. And if I did, I would confront it head on, but I just didn't have to deal with it. There were other areas where it came about, but not in sports.
Athletics. Yep. Well, and the first thing I want to say is, hey, Judge England, yeah, no need to apologize for that. That is great. And I think all of you guys, again, just generational. You have different experiences, right, that way. But then, you know, as administration, we work really hard to make sure you have an experience just like yours. So no need to apologize at all for that. Moving on to the next question. What qualities or skills did you guys learn as a result of being a student athlete that may have helped you in your career today? All right. So Jasmine, I'll let you start out on that one. So what qualities or skills do you think you may have learned as a result of being a student athlete may have helped you?
Time management and how to work cool under pressure.
Okay.
My answer. Do you need me to elaborate?
Well, no, this is your floor. So if that's pretty short and simple, that's perfectly fine. Chad, I say you kind of agreeing with that one. How about you, buddy?
Yeah, I definitely agree that time management, I mean, as a student athlete, you have to learn how to manage your time. I would also say that looking back on my career, I mean, as in my current state in my career, my football career taught me that it's a process. You know what I mean? Like when I thought I was gonna, because I was a star athlete in high school, I thought I was gonna come to Sac State and just be the star. And I realized that no, not only was I not going to be the star, but I was not going to even get to travel with the team, right? And then, you know, slowly but surely I'm getting a couple plays per game, you know, and then I'm playing special teams. And then, you know, by my sophomore year, now I'm getting regular playing time and I'm starting and I get to start and I'm, you know, so it was kind of the same when I started my business, you know, my first year or a couple years, it was, you know, you start from scratch and you got to learn that, you know, this is a process. You can't expect overnight success, but if you just stay consistent and you keep going and you keep working hard, then eventually you will bear the fruit of all that labor. So I think that's one lesson I learned. And then also too, you know, dealing with adversity, having quick, you know, you have a bad play. If something bad happens in a game, then you got to be ready to do, you know, that next play so that you can't be thinking about the negative. you have to be ready to bounce back. And I think you have to use that throughout your life, in your relationships, in your career, etc. And I definitely think that that's a characteristic that you develop in sports and in life.
Yeah, no, good, good. How about you, Justice?
Yeah, time management is a big one. I thought that especially when I was in grad school, like working two jobs, it was like almost, it was really familiar with being a student athlete. And my leadership skills too, being at Sac State, I had to take on a big role being a leader on the court and off the court. So that carried over into me working my jobs in grad school and having to manage all the undergrad students in my department.
Okay. And Judge England, you talk about the skill sets, whether in coaching, obviously your playing days, but what would you attribute to some of those skills you think you gained as a result of being a student athlete and a coach?
Well, being a student athlete is tough. I don't care where you are or what you're doing. It was tough for me to do everything, but then I'm sure Chad will remember when you go to night school, that means you're working during the day. And so I was coaching at Sac State, going to law school at night, working at juvenile hall also at night, and doing all these different things. And there's a drive that you get from being involved in athletics that says, I'm not going to stop and you're not going to make me stop. And so that was something that was very important to me. And I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned from athletics is you don't stop no matter what. I mean, I can recall our homecoming game at Pacific. We were playing San Jose State and we were behind 24-6. And we ended up beating them 29-27 at the very, very end because no one stopped. And that's something that we still remember to this day, all of us, is that if you don't stop, you will succeed. And that was the biggest thing. And that is huge, I think. And that's huge as far as athletics, but it's also huge as far as your life and your work and what you're going to do. I mean, becoming a lawyer is one thing, but to become the best lawyer, Chad, you're putting in extra time. You're doing everything extra to make it work. And that's what I think is important. And that's something that athletics taught me very, very, very clearly. And may have been a few years before y'all, but I still remember it, and it makes sense today.
Well, Judge England, as I'm going on to this next question, I'm gonna have you start with this one. Tell us about a time that you had to overcome adversity in your career, and how did you handle that?
Oh, adversity. I was, as an attorney, I was working as a part-time, what they called referee at juvenile court. And I got there because of a person that was a good friend of mine, Judge Jimmy Long, who passed away last year, my dear friend. And he got me into it. And he said, you need to do this. And I got into this program and I was asked to take over courtrooms for a month at a time. And they said, and everyone said, you're going to be the next referee here. And I said, okay. And I thought, well, I'm going to apply. I applied once, turned down. Applied the second time, turned down. Applied the third time, turned down. And I said, you know what, this is just never going to happen. And after the third time, the presiding judge came to me and said, you got rejected because you need to be a real judge from the governor. And we've already written a letter to the governor to have you appointed. And it was like, wow, and he said, if you had been appointed at that place, you would still be a referee rather than a judge today. And he's right.
Mm-hmm.
It was right. And it was hard. I mean, I hate being rejected. I mean, that's one of the worst things in the world. Because I said, I can't do this. I can't. And that was always the thing that I always said was, I'm not, when they said you have to apply to the governor, I go, but I don't give money. I am not political. I am not this. I am not that. And I had every reason in the world why it wouldn't work. But one thing about this process that taught me is that you don't ask, you don't get. And that's something that has taught me more in my career than anything else in the world, is that if you think you can, or if you want to, you have to go ahead and proceed with it. Do not say, I can't, or it won't happen. That is one of the biggest things that I've learned in my career. Because, I mean, when I started law school, did I think I'd be a federal judge? No. Did I think I'd be a superior court judge? No. Did I think I'd be a municipal court judge? No. None of this was ever in my horizon. It was only because, can you still see me?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, I just got it flashed on me. You guys aren't here anymore. Adobe popped up. But anyway, but that's the bottom line. It's just like, if you don't ask, you don't get. And you have to continue. And that's what athletics taught me, is that you don't stop. You do not stop. No matter what happens, it's your job to continue on in the process.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Justice, I'll come to you on this one. So you think about, again, what do you think maybe a time you had to overcome adversity, whether you're a student athlete or as your time in graduate school?
I'd have to use my grad school example. More so with going into the university and not, like I applied for graduate assistantships and things like that, and I didn't get them. So I went into the university just looking to attain one of those positions. So a lot of times, like, communication is really important in scenarios that are unfavorable for you. So going in, I had to basically speak out for myself and talk to my advisor and things like that to show, to gain connections and show them that I could be successful in one of the positions. And that's how I ended up getting hired within the IT department, and then also ended up getting a position with women's basketball. So just using communication to get through things instead of just sitting there and going through grad school without doing anything else in addition.
That's good. That's good. Jasmine, how about you on this one? The time for adversity. How'd you overcome it?
Mine would, in the spirit of it being Black History Month and all of the recent issues, we had it was when I was at Notre Dame, and I oversaw the women's basketball program there. And, at Notre Dame, everyone is also very white. I could probably count on two hands the number of people who were outside of coaches, but who were African-American that worked in the athletic department. And so it was tough because I was one of them. I was one of the very few ones. And I kind of felt like, oftentimes, anytime there was any sort of issue that was brought up related to diversity or anything like that, it was always, I was one of the people that they were coming to as like your, token brown skin person, which can be really frustrating because I don't speak for all Black people. I have my own experience and other people have their own experiences. But I remember when the I Can't Breathe situation had just happened, and our girls basketball team decided to wear shirts that said I Can't Breathe on them. And we literally had people get up out of their seats and walk out of the arena. We had people calling in the next day saying, these girls, all they need to do is play. They should just play. Why? I don't understand why they have opinions. They should just play. And it was the first time that I had ever experienced racism that blatant in my face. Where people didn't care. It was truly the statements that were made were they felt that way and they felt okay to say those things to me. I don't think a lot of people that called realized that I was Black. And so there were a couple of people who days later when we had another game and they'd come up and they're like, oh, you're Jasmine. And I'm like, yes, I'm Jasmine. And so it was difficult to kind of try to figure out how I can be a voice for everyone that was there, because that was part of one of the reasons why I wanted to get into college athletics, because I do feel like there is an underwhelming amount of people with brown skin. And I say brown skin because it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be Black. You could be of the minority, but with brown skin that works in college athletics and helps to represent student athletes that are playing as well. And I want to help be a representation for them and something that they can look to, and someone that they can come to, because I didn't have that when I was a player. And I had to try to figure out a way that I could find my voice and find a way to speak up at an institution that didn't want to. And it was obvious that they didn't want to. Or that maybe they did want to, but it was a lot of talk and no action. And I was able to put myself in a position where I was fortunate enough to have people who backed me enough to let me kind of run with some programming that we could institute at the actual institution. And I've been able to do that at all the places I've been so far, minus Sac State, but I've been able to, kind of have my hand in a lot of the DEI initiatives prior to DEI becoming blowing up in college athletics the way that it has in the few recent months. But it's difficult. It is difficult to, even in some cases now at the place that I'm at now, we go across campus and I'm the only person with brown skin. And it's hard because, you want to speak up, you don't know what you should speak up and say. You know me, Marcus, I don't have any problem speaking up now. It's just more so trying to figure out what it is that I'm going to say and make sure that it's going to be conveyed in a way that will be heard rather than people kind of putting a wall up. And so it's difficult for me to not be seen as, my passion can sometimes be misconstrued as being angry Black woman. And so trying to find that balance of, I feel very strongly about this and something needs to be done versus, you're going to back away because my opinion is coming off in a way that may seem offensive. So trying to find that balance and dealing with that is still an ongoing, I don't want to say issue, but challenge at every place that I've been. But it's been exciting to kind of not only watch myself grow, but to also watch institutions as things have kind of played out in the world socially, to watch how people are kind of now looking for that kind of leadership. They're looking for that sort of stuff. And so that's my experience with adversity.
And Chad, bring us home on that one, Chad. What do you think? How about some adversity in your career? How have you overcome it?
So my main adversity came from within, right? Self-doubt. I went back to law school at the age of 30. So there was a lot of internal dialogue telling me that I can't and that I waited too long and that what I couldn't do. So what I learned from that is that I gotta just, no matter what my mind is telling me, I have to continue to move forward and continue to take a chance on myself, right? So every accomplishment that I made as I got accepted into law school, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can do this. And then as I graduated from law school, I'm like, oh, okay, I get a little bit less self-talk, a little bit negative, less negative self-talk, right? I passed the bar, then it just builds on, one thing builds on another. And it gives me the confidence to take a chance on myself, because I know that I dream big, but in order to accomplish these goals that I have set for myself, I'm going to have to be a different person than I am internally in order to reach those goals, right? So even, as I got my first job as an attorney, I changed careers after 16 years as a computer programmer. And then one day I'm a programmer and the next day I'm a lawyer. And I have to start from scratch. And, there's, again, the self-doubt, etc. So that was a lot of adversity. But as I overcame that negative self-talk, and learned how to, be a lawyer and a personal injury lawyer, then I gained the confidence to step out on my own and start my own practice. And then, then I'm starting from scratch, and I'm starting from the beginning. So every step, every time you go after a goal, every time I go after a goal, it's like I have to have the confidence. I have to face my fears, because I know that I'm going to be starting from scratch again. But I'm not going to be able to reach my goals if I'm not willing to start over from the beginning. So that's one thing. My profession as an attorney, it seems like I'm constantly facing adversity. There's always something new, another challenge, something I've never experienced before that I have to learn from scratch. And I think that is something that comes from just years of facing fears, overcoming, and not being scared to fail. It's just the reality of life. Sometimes if you're not willing to take a chance at failure, then you're never going to reach the goals that you're setting in your life. You're going to stay limited, and you're going to stay within the box of what you think you can accomplish. Well, my goal is to reach goals and accomplish those things that are not on my radar right now, that I couldn't even imagine 10 years ago. I couldn't imagine that I would have my own law firm and that you guys would ask me to be on a panel here, right? But now I'm living these things. So, adversity is something that I think we're going to face, and we got to kind of be willing to put ourselves into the adversity sometimes by facing our fears and then overcoming that so we can accomplish our goals.
Good. Well, thanks, Chad. And from all four of you guys, the biggest takeaway for me is perseverance. So again, we're all facing adversity no matter what it is, but that perseverance, I think, has really stood out for me. So thank you for that. And as we move along, I know have a time check here, but for all those in the audience, if you have any questions you would like to ask, feel free to put those in the chat and I'll get to those. So just want to make sure you understood that one. So I guess I'll go to this next question here, though. It's what career advice would you give student athletes today, especially those in regards to career planning? So what career advice would you give those, knowing what you know today, what career advice would you give those? So I'll start with you on that one, Jasmine.
I keep on the go first straw. Career advice that I would offer, put the time in. It's worth it. Like I volunteered a lot. And I mean, I in working at Sac State, they let me get my hands on a lot, but I volunteered a lot. I worked for free a lot. And just in working with a lot of students, I do see a lot of students come through and there is a pretty heavy sense of entitlement that's kind of like, hey, I'm in college, I should get paid for this, or hey, I'm in college, so I should be given this opportunity. And not to say that education isn't important, it is important, but putting the time in and doing the work and getting the experience is also important. And putting yourself in a position, I don't get the full-time job at Sac State if I don't work essentially for free at Sac State in a marketing assistant role, doing way more than what I was paid to do. That doesn't happen for me. I don't get to the position that I'm at now if I'm not willing to kind of work in other departments that, again, I don't get paid to work in other departments, but you do it because, you're a team player and you're putting the work in. You're putting the work in. And I feel like, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to work for free. I get that, it's kind of, everyone can be, it's not a bad thing to be concerned with, well, how much am I going to make? Or when am I going to, get my first time gig? It's coming. I promise you it's coming. Just don't be afraid to put the work in, keep grinding, keep volunteering, keep putting yourself out there. And the other important thing is make the right connections too. Make sure you set yourself up with the right people, make sure you're meeting mentors, make sure you have contacts. I don't get to where I am today without Marcus Jennings, honestly. Like it doesn't that's kind of, you know, where it starts. So you really just have to put yourself in a position where you're doing the work, and trust that in you putting in the work and in you meeting the right contacts and developing those genuine relationships, that it will yield fruit later for you.
Good, good. And I know we're running up against our time a little bit, so I'm gonna move to a couple other questions because I think these is really good for our young student athletes. And I'm gonna start with you on this one, Chad, because this you'll relate to this one good, and then I'm gonna go to Justice. You're next. So, what impact has mentors played in your career, and how should one go about getting a mentor?
That's a good question. That is a good question. For me, I would say that you cannot be successful in this life without help, right? And the main thing is that people who are in the position to mentor you, they want to mentor people who are helping themselves. Like, if you are helping yourself, that makes somebody who is in a position that you want to get to, that gives them the desire to help you, right? So I would say that with me, I've had people reach down and give me opportunities that I wasn't even looking for, just because I impressed them with how hard I was working and the fact that I was just focused on my goal, and that's contagious. And me personally, in my position, when I see a young person who is really working hard, trying to do well in their life, they're working hard in school, or they're just, it makes me want to mentor them. It makes me want to give them the opportunity, because I know that whatever help that I give them, they're going to take advantage of it. I can tell based on what they've already shown me, So I would say that that's the main thing, you don't need, mentors will come to you. The mentors will come swoop you up. Go hard at what you're doing. Be the best at be the best that you can be. And also work on your interpersonal skills. Make sure that you're a likable person and that you also like people. You appreciate, you're a genuine networker, help others. What you put out will come back to you. So there's always somebody who is looking up to you and hasn't been in the situation that you're in right now. So go back and help. If you're in college, maybe help some high school kids and mentor some high school kids, and that will come back to you in mentorship. People who are ahead of you or who are further advanced in their career will see what you're doing or be attracted to you and want to assist you in your situation as well. I hope that's
Yeah.
helpful.
No, good, good. How about Justice for you? As you, again, recent student athlete, grad school, what impact has mentors played for you thus far?
I'd say definitely, of course, like he just said, Chad just said, when people see you helping yourself, it makes them want to help you. I personally have had a mentor since my junior year of high school, and she just helped me along the way. Like, we have similar backgrounds and we were just drawn towards each other. I guess it was fate. And as far as going about getting a mentor, I feel like if that's something you're looking for, you should look to reach out to people, maybe intern with somebody or ask them for guidance and reference to moving forward in what you want to do exactly.
Okay, no, that's good. Good. We get a couple of questions coming through, so I'm gonna go with this next one. This is for you, Judge England. What was the biggest challenge you faced transitioning from college? No, actually, this was for Jasmine. I'm sorry, because Jasmine's in the sports career. So, what's the biggest challenge faced for you from college and sports into your sports career now?
What's the biggest challenge in my transition from playing to working in sports?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think there's a big, at least for me, I don't know if this is the same for everyone, but for me, there's like this big aha moment when you go from playing in sports in college and then working on the administrative side. It's like things start to make sense. You're like, oh, that's a much bigger issue than like when you're a player, when I was a player, like there were so many things. I'm like, why can't we just do that? Well, why can't we just do that? Well, how come this isn't happening? Well, how come like we should be able to do this because this school is doing that? And then you get on the administrative side and you start looking at budgets and you start looking at, how sport administrators are running things and you kind of get that behind the scenes. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is there. When I was a student athlete, I had no idea what a sport administrator was. I didn't even know we had one. I didn't know that was a thing. And I had all kinds of thoughts and ideas about, what was going on in our program and the way I felt like things should have gone. And now that I work in college athletics and students say that to me, student athletes say those things to me, like, well, how come we just don't? And I'm like, oh man, I remember when I used to ask that question. And I always tell them like, it's a bigger issue than, it's not an issue, but it's a bigger topic than you think it is. Because you just don't realize that as a player, like this is a business. And I think that was one of the things that I realized when I went to go work at Notre Dame. It's a machine. This is a business. And it very much so is something that, is about revenue generation and, donations and fundraising. And there is a method to the madness in working in college athletics that as a player, you don't see, you're not really aware of. And it's just, Trust me, your administrators, the people that are at your school, they are working their hardest to do and get everything for you that they absolutely can. Because you guys are, meaning the student athletes, you guys are always on the forefront of their minds. I know my student athletes are always on the forefront of my minds and how we do our business and what it is, how it is that we operate. So the challenge is kind of growing up. You go from being a player and you gotta grow and you've gotta mature and you have to learn how to take that aggression that you're so used to using as a player and then channel that into professional aggression, right? Like I can't just go knock you down. I have to knock you down with my words, which it's hard to kind of figure out how to balance that delicately, but that's probably the biggest challenge. I don't know if that answers the question.
Okay. No, it does. And this, go ahead, Judge England, because I had another question for you as well.
I'd like to say something to emphasize what was just said, and she said it beautifully. But having been on the Board of Regents for the University of Pacific for 9 years, I know that there's another whole level above athletics that looks at the money and what's going on. And you're looking at not only money, but you're also looking at, are we going to keep programs? Are we going to keep educational support going in certain areas? There's a lot more going on at a university than I think a lot of people understand. It's not just about your sport. There's a whole lot more that's going on that needs to be dealt with and how it's going to be handled. So I just wanted to reemphasize what was just said. I think that Jasmine said it very, very, very well, but there's another whole level above that, and even above that, if you're dealing with, like Sac State's got, you're in the Cal State University system, you've got the people that are working on that, and there's the other ones on top of that. It's very difficult. So there's a lot to be looked at when you think about what's going on with your sport.
Exactly. So as we're butting up against the time, so I'm gonna give all you guys, our panelists, a minute for this last question here. Who would you guys say is your main inspiration for where you are up to this point in your life? So Justice, I'll let you start with that one.
I'd have to say my god sister. I kind of followed in her footsteps from a young age. She actually played women's basketball at the University of Notre Dame. And growing up, I just always went to her basketball game, so I knew I wanted to do that. I wanted to play college basketball. Up until right now, well, I'm not exactly where I want to be, but I'm getting there.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll have to add to that when the time comes.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So, Judge England, how about you, my friend?
That's a hard one to think about, but I can say that I believe that the one person that changed my life when it came to my academics and my career was my counselor at UOP, who, after I had been told that, well, not told, I realized that I was not a pre-med major. Chemistry, organic chemistry kicked my butt. And I just said that was the end of it. And he said, you need to go into law. You can write, you can do this, and this is what you need to do. And you need to quit this football stuff and get into law right away. And his name was Wallace Caldwell, and he's passed away, but he's the man that changed my life completely when it came to what I'm doing now and where I am. And that's because of him. One person did it.
Yep. Good. How about you, Chad? Would you say that main inspiration for you up to this point?
You know, that's so difficult. That's a hard one. I mean, I don't really, honestly, I don't have inspiration like that. Honestly, I feel like my inspiration is more like my family, my kids.
Yeah.
I want to be an example to people. I overcame panic attacks by practicing mindfulness and meditation. So my inspiration is helping other people overcome panic attacks and other people to get control over their mind so they can accomplish their goals and dreams and aspirations. But as far as an individual, as a person, I can't think of a person like that. There have been people who opened doors for me.
Yep.
There have been people who have been positive influences in my life, but my inspiration comes from within.
Yep. No, it's perfect. I get it. And Jasmine, bring us home.
Mine's easy. Her name is Joe Bodensteiner. And Justice, if you are looking to get into college athletics, I would highly recommend her as someone to reach out to. But this woman, she's the athletic director now here at St. Joe's where I'm at. She's the one that gave me a call when I was at Sac State. She was formerly at Notre Dame. She's a lawyer by trade, but she runs compliance. She's one of the smartest women I know. And she's one of the most, I think she's maybe the first example of someone who is down to earth and can have the most real conversation with anybody, while also sounding like she's the most intelligent person in the room. It's amazing. But she's someone that, that I look at and just like, wow, I probably won't be, cause she's definitely, she's brainiac, but I aspire to, have a career that is as impactful as hers has been in the world of college athletics, but also in the lives of, I'm just one person that she's reached out to. I've seen her reach out to and mentor so many other people that she's hooked up with jobs or connections or whatever. She's just been a true inspiration for me.
Well, thank you. Thank you all again for your time and your honestness and your openness to really talk to our student athletes and staff we have on this call. And we truly appreciate you. And I'm going to turn this over to Bethany Krause to sign off. But I just wanted to say, once a Hornet, always a Hornet. And thank you again. I look forward to seeing you all sometime soon. Bethany?
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, panelists, for being here. Chadwick, Judge England, Jasmine, Justice, you all provided such phenomenal insight from various aspects of your journey. And again, we really, truly appreciate your time here tonight. Our student athletes got to hear just such insightful information spanning years. So thank you so much. Would like to give a shout out to President Nelson, who joined us tonight as well. So thank you for that. Thank you for the SAC Council reps that joined in, our student athletes, and our amazing administrators as well that hopped on. It's so great to be a part of this Hornet family. And for athletes, if you have further questions, we are more than happy to funnel a few of those in respects to, of course, the panelists' time. But thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Stingers up.
Stingers up. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Stingers up. Thanks.
Bye.